Now let's take a look at our letters and all the different ways of communication we have for you to consider for your program in the fall. Our first is the welcome back and calendar, which has been a really popular element of our annual giving program since we started. To begin, the first letter we suggest is that you send this welcome back letter. It is not about the pledge. It is a joyful letter about the program year beginning again. Now, as you prepare to be agile, this is one that may need to be updated last minute as circumstances of regathering and churches change, and as your leadership decides whether and how to continue any virtual worship. Be ready for pivots here, and be ready for those pivots with a smile and some joy, because pivots mean we're either moving forward with regathering, we're deciding perhaps to remain as we are to keep people safe, or some combination of both. So everything is good here, right? The letter here introduces the theme, whether you're using one together or your own. This is an essential letter to let folks know how to get on board and look forward to gathering back together, either virtually or in person. This also gives folks a calendar to hang on the refrigerator or integrate into their phone so that they are ready and available to participate fully in everything that's coming forward. The fall can be an especially dense time of planning, particularly if we're moving back into our churches. So get your events on everybody's calendar, on the refrigerator ahead of time, so that their first commitment and availability is to the church. This is an important, joyful, and tactile moment for many with their church home, and we worked to make it an especially colorful and joyful experience. You can, of course, send all of this electronically, but sending this sort of thing to their house that they can open, hold, turn back and forth to see all the information, and hang on their refrigerator will be important. Okay, now let's take a look at our pledge letters. Each pledge letter comes with general guidelines ahead of the pledge letter itself, and these are guidelines and notes on best practices for writing these letters. Our best practices here include a section on the One Together theme, but this is also incredibly useful for those of you who might be using a different theme. We have information on the length of your pledge letter itself, which trends shorter these days. Many folks are writing their pledge letters in 14-point font, so they are a little bit easier to read. And this year, for the first time, we have also written 2 versions of each letter, so that we have a section in the guidelines describing the difference between the 2 letters and resources and how we chose to write those. We have a section on how to create powerful impact bullets, which highlights the stories of your most important ministries over the past year, how to use the icons in our logos of the technical pieces of how to move them around and how to format them. And finally, the guidelines offer a note on how to plan for ministry minutes, which is when different parishioners tell the stories of what your church means to them. As mentioned above, our program includes 4 letter variations. The 4 letters are for new pledgers, static pledgers, proportional pledgers, and a mid-year invitation for those who may be new to your church. And each of these variations, as I said, has 2 different letters. One final note before we look at the pledge letters: statistics tell us that if you send these letters by postal mail first, then follow them up with an electronic version, you will get a higher response rate than if you just send only electronic or only paper copy. Remember, with your electronic version, if you have the capacity to also give folks the option to submit their pledge electronically, so that while they have their phone in their hand reading the note, mine's lighting up. It takes just a couple keystrokes for you to receive their pledge. Many of our parishioners, I included, have a tendency to see these materials come in, put them in that special pile of things we really want to read, then walk away from them and they get coffee spilled on them, or Jell-O or Cheerios put on top of them, and they get buried in the pile of things we really want to read. But if you send it a little bit later as a backup on the electronically, then folks can take a look at it while they're sitting on Zoom and maybe not paying entirely close to what's going on, or while they're someplace else. They can say, oh, I meant to read this, and sit there right there with their phone and go through it. Okay, first, we have our traditional pledge letter. This particular one is a look at our proportional giving letter. All the letters, the proportional, the new, the static, and the mid-year, are the same at their foundation, but use some different language here and there depending on the audience. Our traditional letter here follows the general template from last year's Wonder in All letter, in case you're familiar with it, emphasizing the one together theme, of course, this year, how this theology manifests parish, and then offers bullet points identified with icons from the logo, highlighting some of the most compelling ministry moments in the past year. A fun thing to imagine is how you can use these icons around your church. Can you print large copies of them and place them around your campus where the work is being done? Can you make stickers and give them to your parishioners to place around the church, or even on people's name tags where they see these ministries at work? Or like around the Diocese of Virginia, we use these on our webpage and some of our ministry communications to highlight the ministries going on. Possibilities are fun and are endless. Stephanie.
Thanks. So this second letter is based on a template that essentially helps you develop a letter for storytelling and fundraising during a crisis. It has 8 steps, and if you're interested in these steps, you can follow the link on our website to get all of them. But it walks you through a process where you quickly acknowledge that things aren't normal now. You describe how this situation, whether it's the COVID health crisis or the economy, is hurting your community and your ministries. You're asking for a special gift to help. You're telling a very short story to illustrate your need. You show how the gift perfectly will meet that need, but how that need from the story is not your only need. You're sharing how the funds needed are not in your budget, and you're asking them to send that gift right now. I like this format because it acknowledges that we are in a very different time and our lives are very different. Some people have found their personal generosity during this crisis. They have found a way to be needed. It has spoken to them, this ability to reach out and do things. And if we send them the same letter that we have always sent them, they may not respond generously. It doesn't actually speak to them. So it is nice to have another option available, especially since we still have a few months before many of our congregations will send out their annual giving materials. I will say though, if this letter makes you uncomfortable, that's okay. It's not supposed to make you feel comfortable. It is supposed to make the recipient think about how they can meet the financial needs of the ministries your congregation provides. They want to help. They want to be part of the solution and to be the heroes of the story. If you have been communicating to them and telling them about the incredible work you've been doing, this type of letter will not seem out of place. If you have not told them anything you have done since the middle of March, this will seem out of the blue and it won't work. So it is all about the context of your situation and the way that you have been communicating with them. So it is one option and it was one format and one template for you to work with.